extreme Islamism. Okay? That is the wellspring of terrorism, and it is an underrated threat in America. 9/11 is too long ago, apparently, and we are paying more attention to the threat of trans athletes than of terrorists recruiting and radicalizing the most vulnerable population in America, young men. The young man who murdered 2 Israeli embassies, paying more attention to the threat of trans athletes than of terrorists recruiting and radicalizing the most vulnerable population in America. Young man who murdered 2 Israeli Aron Lishinsky, example of the problem. He shouts "Free Palestine" not because he is from there or understands the place, but because as a young brown man, he identifies with the oppression and he has been conditioned to do that. We know the shooter is a far-left activist, caught on camera shouting "Free Palestine," and as he was arrested, he kept chanting the slogan and said, "I did it for Gaza." So why the F are all these people on the left saying "if true"? And if that's who he is, and if he's not an IDF plant, and you don't want any of the blame for what just happened on you? He is described.
Why are you not connecting? Damn it. That's what.
Described as what he is. He said what he said. Stop asking why people who understand what we're up against, like Douglas Murray, caution Joe Rogan against his comic buddies bashing Israel for sport and to develop a following. Prosecutors allege this guy fired nearly 24 bullets in this attack because he wanted to kill as many as he could. And we know what's feeding the fire, right? Don't pretend to not know what this is about. The man has been conditioned to identify with the oppression in Gaza as if he's one of them, and there are so many like him here, in our families, on our campuses. Did he know one of his victims wasn't a Jew? I love how people are using that as it somehow mitigates what this was about. You know he didn't know, right? He was there to kill Jews, obviously. But imagine if you're right, and he did know that one of them was not Jewish. So now they're targeting not just Jews, but those who stand with Jews? Now,
I can understand the entire concept of his frustration, but my only concern is, we will have to be careful about our rhetoric or the language that we say because of the potential backlash. But I mean, I can't tell him how to feel about this particular situation.
if it's not true, and I doubt it is, that he knew, it is certainly what Islamists instruct on the extreme side, here on American soil. Did he know that the two people he murdered were leaving an event that was about coordinating more aid to Gaza? Would it even matter when he's constantly told that Israel is starving as part of a genocide?
Israel starving?
And many feeding his broken brain are in America in positions of influence and power. And even though same people are now saying they're disgusted by this, even though it's the latest manifestation of their efforts. And they're saying they're against anti-Semitism, like the Squad and its putative leader, AOC. Absolutely nothing justifies the murder of innocents. Anti-Semitism is a threat to all we hold dear as a society. It must be confronted and rooted out everywhere. Did I miss the word Jews in there in terms of who was killed? Odd omission.
Wait, I'm confused. Like, when we're talking about anti-Semitism, I would assume that is being referred to as Jews or the Jewish community. I don't understand that part. I didn't see anything wrong with that tweet or that X or Twitter, whatever you call that thing. Yeah, that's a weird take. Yeah, we have to be very careful right here. We're about to die. I think we're about to go into a spot where There's no coming back from this.
Auto missions, they're not just innocents. He just didn't go into a school and fire away. He was looking for Jews. You know, the people you say are conducting a genocide. Those people. Now,
I'm trying to consider people's feelings about what happened um to the two Israelis or people who died. I will say this. I'm gonna stand 10 toes down on the fact that this had nothing to do when people are saying that there's a genocide going on. They're not saying Jewish people are doing a genocide. Genocide is being committed. Genocide is being done by Israel, the IDF particular. They're the ones that are committing a genocide. Nobody here in America are pushing buttons. Nobody here in America, if you're a Jewish, you're not. I don't believe anybody's here is calling the IDF and consistently telling them to keep doing what they're doing. The problem with pro-Palestine voters, the issue that I believe that people have is the Israeli government, not the people, the government, because the people can't necessarily do anything to stop this. Obviously, if I'm not mistaken, there's actually protests in Israel about this. What's going
on? Of course, AOC doesn't just say what I just read, right? Nor do her colleagues, right? And it's all those other signals and suggestions that foment what we saw here and on our campuses. And you can make the case, hold it, you can make the case. Don't draw a moral equivalency between the murder of 2 and the murder of thousands. Okay, in Gaza, okay. But what are you leaving out in that? I'll tell you what the parallel is, okay? These murders were precipitated by hate of Jews, just like October 7th. And what's happening in Gaza is being done by the people who were targeted. And Hamas, not freedom fighters, terrorists, refuse to disarm, refuse to stop hiding among civilians, refuse to stop stealing the aid for civilians, and refuse to return who they stole. And these 2 victims did nothing to this guy who killed them, whereas the people in Gaza, many of whom don't support Hamas, but many who do, October 7th is on Hamas. And until they turn over their people and surrender, how can you draw a moral equivalence between what Israel is doing and...
Okay, the difference between what Israel is doing is right now they know there's statistics. Everybody knows that they're not killing Hamas agents right now. They're not doing that. And they know by now, they should know by now, that even if they do, there's just going to be another person that's going to, with the same ideology, that's going to step up. And that ideology is going to continue the more and more and more you keep pounding innocent women and children with missiles. I don't understand. This is not that difficult to understand. This is ISIS all over again. You won't be able to kill the ideology of whoever you deem a terrorist organization. You won't be able to kill or stomp out an ideology. You can't do that. It's impossible. The best you can do is try to mitigate the damage that it can cause. And one way to try to mitigate and try to stop what you deem to be a terrorist organization, and one way to stop them, especially if they're fueled off of propaganda and ideology, is to probably stop proving their point. Maybe Chris Cuomo, maybe as tragic as an incident that this is, maybe tell Israel, tell Netanyahu to stop proving their point, because they're still indiscriminately bombing Gaza, bombing them. They're the enemy here. They're the ones that are committing heinous acts. What happened to those 2 people? Tragic. This monster, and this is a monster that committed those acts. But I'm not going to lump in every single person who says free Palestine or every single person who calls this a genocide. I'm not going to say that, oh, they are bad people. I'm not going to use this one instance. No, I'm not going to do that. It doesn't make any fucking sense. There are guilty parties involved. You want to say Hamas is a guilty party? Fine. But you also have to say that IDF is a guilty party. You want to call Hamas a terrorist organization, fine. But you would also have to call the IDF a terrorist organization. I don't think you can have one or the other. So while I understand the frustration of what happened at the embassy, I 100% understand the frustration, not here to invalidate it. But what I will never understand is the reverse propaganda push. This is what we call mad day. When you're upset now you show your actual true colors. Now we know how you really, 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 really feel. Now, one time did I hear him show any sympathy for the thousands upon thousands upon thousands upon thousands of children that are dying at the hands of the IDF. There's no actual substance, no actual data that states that, hey, Hamas is stealing aid from civilians.
What started that? You can say it's too much. Of course it is. You can say there should be more aid. Of course there should. But the nexus of all of it necessarily goes back to the terrorists who started it, who are still there, with the tacit, if not open, respect and support of many people in this country. We have no idea how deep this problem goes here at home. Democrats, my brothers and sisters, I understand why you're worried about Trump. I understand why you call him an ultimate evil, but I don't agree. And if you want the ultimate evil, look at the Islamists, the extreme ones in America, not just Muslims. And mind your dogs.
There, right there. Mind your dogs. You're asking for, I think, similar outrage happened. Like this rhetoric, I remember after 9/11, I was like 13, 14 maybe. And after that happened and everybody found out exactly where who was responsible. There was so much anger, so much hate crimes against the Muslim community happen because of what happened at 9/11, even though the majority of them did not support what happened. A lot of them actually liked it here in America. They wouldn't want that to happen. But what I'm hearing Chris Cuomo say now is the same shit I heard. Or even you can even research it, go back, read the articles of post 9/11. This is the same rhetoric. And this could be very dangerous coming from somebody who has, again, on a actual news nation, which by himself, I believe, has maybe 500,000 followers. Somebody whose face is recognizable when it comes to media. So I feel like you're going down a dangerous route. Your feelings are valid to be upset about this. But we have to know who the actual enemies are. You have to be able to separate. Just because if somebody's yelling free Palestine while they're unaware, while they're shooting people, innocent people that have nothing to do with what's going on in Gaza, or nothing to do with what's going on between Israel and Gaza, you have to understand that is an individual. Anti-Semitism isn't a new thing in America, unfortunately. It's not a new thing. So this language, it's extremely harmful. Extremely harmful.
Who are doing their bidding.
And to call people, again, you have nothing. To call people dogs. To tell the left to call off their dogs. Newsflash. If you're referring to free Palestine, understand that a lot of them, they started a trend to protest the vote. They didn't want to vote for the left. They didn't want to do that. Because of the Israel and Gaza situation, that right there isn't a left versus a right situation. This is a humanitarian issue. You have absolutely zero proof that this is a Democratic voter. This is probably, he could be an independent, or he could be a centrist. We don't know. But we do know he's upset about what's going on in Gaza. And we do know he took his anger out on 2 individuals who had, or I believe there's a lot of people that he tried to kill a lot of people. He took that anger out on them. That's unacceptable. He's a monster for it. I'm glad he's going to prison, because we don't need people like that running around the country so angry that they're doing this. But we also don't need people going around the country shooting up schools. So let's save this energy, or let's have the same energy for that as well.
What am I talking about? Look online to the reaction. Americans calling a terrorist a hero again, saying he, like the healthcare CEO murderer, was justified in violence. It's the same thing I've heard in Iraq and Afghanistan, but now echoing from Indiana.
Is there any proof of that? If I look it up, could I find like people in the United States calling him a hero? Don't get me wrong, there are deplorable people in this country. There are people who fantasize over serial killers. There are people who want to marry serial killers that are in prison on death row. So don't get me wrong, I know there's crazies out there. But what are you gonna try to convince me that people that trolls on the internet, or people on the internet, are a substantial source to say, oh my God, everybody's crazy? No, those are isolated incidents. We have to be very, very careful and not hypocritical, because if somebody from Israeli descent, or Jewish, or somebody who was supporting the IDF decided to go in to one of the protests at a campus and started lighting off shots or firing off shots, no one's going to say, man, we have a issue with the Jewish community. No, this is the Islam. No, this is not going to happen. You're just going to say this was a bad person who did a bad thing. And that's what this should be. This should be recorded as. This should be a bad person who did a bad thing. We should talk about the nuances and the context surrounding it. But at the end of the day, the story should read. It should begin and end with this person did a bad thing. We shouldn't say that this person took the ideology of the left and the Free Palestine voters, channeled that in, and decided to go spray up the embassy. We can't do that. That's dangerous. Without any actual proof. Even if he said I did it for Gaza, that still makes him a bad person. That still makes him a monster. But let's not pretend as if what you're saying now won't be used, clipped, recorded, and used against people in Palestine. You're going to see this type of rhetoric now. It's going to be picked up. And that's really, really unfortunate. But it is what it is.
Anna, this is not a one-off. It's just one more of what we choose to ignore. You remember that Islamist who drove a pickup truck with an ISIS flag attached through Bourbon Street, killing 14 people, injuring dozens and dozens more? You know, he's a citizen from Texas, right? And we used to see that as an irony, right? Wow, from Texas. That's like the last place you'd expect a Muslim extremist from, right? Wrong. Texas is ground zero for what I'm talking about. Did you know there's a push to create an Islamic residential development there? 1,000 homes, K through 12, faith-based school, a mosque, shops, insular community. What's wrong with that? Everything.
Here's where we run into the problem, bro. This might be the end of Cuomo. This might be the beginning of the end. There is nothing wrong with what he just said. That's a community of people, community of Muslims trying to build a community. There should not have been an instance. That should not have been said. That should not have been said. That's anger coming out, and his mic should be cut. Because this is going to be a bad look for News Nation. This is already a bad look for Chris Cuomo and anybody that's going to associate themselves with him. Because you're about to tell us that everything's going to be wrong with the Muslim community trying to build a community because of the actions of one person. And then people are surprised when they hear that people of color have this weird feeling around white people when we know that they are so quick.
Here, we assimilate. Here, the struggle is to remove the distinctions, the melting of the melting pot. That's what we're trying to reduce. The religious leader pushing for the project has openly admired the Muslim Brotherhood. Who are they? I'll tell you. Openly defended Hamas's killing of innocent civilians on October 7th. The developers initially advertised that the community would limit sales to only persons we believe will contribute to the overall makeup of our community. Meaning who? Reports say 75% of the housing fees will go to finance the local mosque, deterring.
So the fuck what? There's a lot of communities that do that. There's a lot of communities that hold space for their own communities, to pump in money for their own communities. Why is it limited to, well, why is it impossible? Why does it scare people that the Muslim community wants to do the same? Jewish community, they do the same. As a matter of fact, they're famous for doing the same, for building their own, for building up structure for their own. That's the model. But when it's a Muslim community trying to do it, it's a problem. I'm telling you.
Non-Muslims, right? Now, before you say, hey, stop targeting Muslims, I'm not. I'm not.
You're 100% doing that.
For me, I do not believe in demonizing an entire faith, and sure as hell, not all of the people who decide to believe in it. I agree that that is a mistake on both fronts. But remember what I said. The person who is the leader of this effort in Texas, what he said about Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood. What is the goal of the Muslim Brotherhood? Reject Western influence, create Islamic governments around the world to enforce Sharia on societies. Many countries designate them as a terror agency. I'm shocked Trump hasn't. The ideological cradle for Hamas and Al-Qaeda is the Muslim Brotherhood. They've been in the United States since the 60s, but they've morphed, metastasized. There's a malignancy, and it's spreading here in America. Their members aim to convert as many people as possible so that one day a majority of Americans will create a government under Sharia law. That's their goal. And guess who's been funding what we've been seeing on the campuses? The Brotherhood. You know who else funds a lot of bad stuff there? Here, not there, here. The guys who just gifted Trump a plane, that's who. That country's been crucial in funding the Muslim Brotherhood. Another report found that the Muslim Brotherhood funds a group called the American Muslims for Palestine, directly funding the popular campus protest group Students for Justice in Palestine. And another group, the Muslim Student Association, was founded by members of the Muslim Brotherhood. And another group that funds the student protests, called the Samadown Palestinian Prisoner Solidarity Network, has been sanctioned by the Treasury Department for raising money for the Gaza terror organization PFLP. So, this is what I need you to understand, all right? It's too simple to say it's horrible that Jews were targeted here in America. Get used to it. They're not safe anywhere. And they have to be defended for what they represent about all of us everywhere. That's how big this.
All of us everywhere. What the fuck does that mean? I'm so confused. What does that mean? Yeah, of course. When between this war, you're going to have people that are going to, be attacked on both sides. There are going to be hate crimes that happens on both sides. Let's be real about that. We should talk about the incident that happened. Let's not fearmonger and try to tell people, hey man, this is just the beginning. And we need to protect Jewish people. It's like we need to protect everybody. That should be the message. That should be the message. We need to pose out that that's just not acceptable. But AOC tried to do it, and you condemned her for it. There are people who out there that don't agree with it. You condemn them for it. All those kids, all those people in that video that he just showed, apparently all of them are bad people. It might not be what Chris is saying. That might not be what Chris Cuomo is saying. But that damn sure is going to be what a lot of people watching this are going to say. Because they won't be able to tell the difference. They will not be able to tell the difference.
Is. Every one of these things, every time it happens, oh no, it's just him, it's just this, it is all connected. What's going on with him, what's going on in the Middle East, what's going on our campuses. You think that we are an island here. You think that because there is a relatively small Muslim community in America, that it doesn't really matter. You're wrong. And it is in this context that I look at what's happening at Harvard University. It is a no-brainer argument for me to say the president can't tell a university who to let in and not let in. It can tell them to not have discriminatory practices if they want to get any government funding, but you can't say no international students. Half of our Nobel winners for America have come from somewhere else. It's easy to make that argument, and it may well be the right argument, but it is not the only argument. Not in the context of what we're talking about and what we're seeing right now. How many killers are being made on campus? So I get it. I'm not saying it should win as an interest, but I get it. Questioning their ability at a place like Harvard that stubbornly
like, let's be honest, how many Dylan roofs are being created in bubblefuck Texas somewhere where it's isolated from education and everybody just breeds to be hated black people, to hate anybody, people of color. How many hateful Christians are being bred right now in order to just hate the LGBTQ community? We're going to talk about that. Are we ever going to talk about that? How many killers are being bred in Harvard is a crazy fucking thing to say. One incident. It is a crazy thing to say. Do you want to blame something from coming out of this situation? Why don't you put the energy into telling Israel or the IDF that in order to stop whatever they're deeming Hamas to be a terrorist organization, if you want to talk about ISIS, that was also an ideology, and the only way to stomp out an ideology is to dimmer the flames. You'll never be able to put out an ideology completely. It's always going to exist. But if you're going to continue to give people reasons to join a fucking cause, then it is on you. If you know I have to do this or I have to stop doing this because it's only proving the point of the terrorist, proving the point of the propaganda, proving the ideology was the right way to go. And then we're surprised when things like this happen. But then Chris Cuomo, you want to go around, you want to condemn. You're condemning whether he's trying to say it or not, whether he wants to say it or not. You're actively condemning. You're actively pushing. You're actively being extremely discriminatory right now. We have a name. We have a person. That is the person that committed this crime. That is the person that should be focused. Not the entire fucking community. Not everybody who says free Palestine should be judged. Not everybody who's Muslim should be judged. And watching this broadcast, listening to majority of shit that's being said right now, one can assume that somebody's going to hear this without proper education or proper context or any sort of moral compass, will take that and just breed Chris Cuomo ideology now. Everything about the Muslim community is bad, it is dangerous, and we need to pay attention. We need to put a magnifying glass on the Muslim community now. That's what they're going to get out this fucking video. And you want to tell, and you want to realize why people feel in America feel the way they feel about white people. Unfortunately, every time I get online and do a live stream, I have to keep talking about race because people make it more and more prevalent. You cannot go on a station or a broadcast or a podcast or whatever the fuck News Nation is. You can't go on there and say that and not expect the possibility of bad things coming out of it. Again, I go back to post 9/11. The same talking points that Chris Cuomo was saying was the same talking points that was used when Muslims were being attacked Innocent people that had nothing to do with the terrorist attacks that happened on 9/11. Hate crimes after hate crime after hate crime. This is the guy who reported those crimes. I will never, ever, for the life of me, understand why people are so quick to just fucking flip on everything and everybody. Is it worth it? Is it worth it to sit there and condemn an entire community for the actions of one? Should people clutch their pearls when they hear Free Palestine now? When they see a sticker or a sign on somebody's lawn that says Free Gaza, full ceasefire? Should everybody who says this now, should everybody who flies a Palestinian flag, should they now be afraid because of what Chris Cuomo is telling people? People who are going to listen to this and think, okay, well, they're all dangerous. We have to get them before they get us. Irresponsibility. And something might happen. And I'm going to come back to this particular video. And I'm going to say, hey, maybe you should have worded it differently. Your frustration, your feelings, and emotions are valid, but you're going to have to also accept the fact that you just perpetuated harm towards a community. Potential. We stopped talking about random white people just doing terrorist acts, running people over in Charlottesville. We stopped talking about a white people going inside of a grocery store and only deciding to shoot black people. Saying, excuse me, to the white people in their way because they want to get to the black people. How many Dylan Roofs are being bred? Cuomo, we don't talk about that. I haven't heard one person say the shit that they said about dangerous white people in the community. Never. But, you know, my voice, other voices of people with lower, really low accounts, we won't get it. We'll never get our, words. We'll just be the people in the comments of tweets saying, you fucked up, F you for saying this. Voices don't get out there until they actually start supporting each other. This is fear-mongering 101.
Resists what it is an enabling on campus and questioning its ability to enroll international students if it's going to keep picking ones that want to kill Jews. Now, this would be a massive financial blow to the nation's wealthiest college, since nearly a third of their student body are international students, and I think that probably makes them a stronger university. The DHS secretary posted today that Harvard has lost their student and exchange visitor program certification as a result of their failure to adhere to the law. Let this serve as a warning to all universities and academic institutions across the country. Warn about what? Let's bring in former White House ethics czar and Harvard law grad Norm Eisen and former acting DHS deputy secretary under Trump, Ken Cuccinelli. Cooch, you there?
Good to see you.
All right, we're figuring out Norm's comms, but I wanted to come to you first anyway, Ken. So you heard what I just said,
okay.
And why I get what's going on right now in the sensitivity. As a lawyer first, wear your lawyer hat. Tell me why this could be okay for the administration to do, and then what's your take on the policy?
So every school signs up for the CVIS program. I'll call it the CVIS program, just to stick with the acronym. And they have lots of requirements of oversight. They have a school official who is the lead liaison there. And DHS during the spring has been making requests for information to Harvard consistent with the regulation governing this. And Harvard is not responding in a way that the administration considers adequate on a repeated basis. So they finally yanked the privilege of getting international students.
War on schools, war on freedom of speech, perpetuating potential harm to other communities, not just the Jewish community, but other communities as well. That is what this entire broadcast seems like it was about. um, Honestly, it's difficult. I don't know what to say. I feel like a lot of these broadcasters are hypocrites, anyways. Um, you can't tell everybody come to the table, let's start talking unity, and then say something like this. Everybody else gets a pass. Nobody else gets a pass. Stop saying this. Stop saying that. Stop condemning this. Stop condemning that. Stop doing this because you want to have a conversation with people. But if you keep saying this, they don't want to have a conversation with you, but it's okay for you to just sit there and fearmonger and try to stick into the mind that maybe the Muslims building a community for themselves so that they themselves can prosper within their own community is dangerous. One person that goes in and does an atrocity. One monster goes in, does an atrocity, says free Palestine. And now everybody should be afraid to say free Palestine, or everybody should clutch their pearls when they hear it, when they see it. This is why I don't believe individuals like a Chris Cuomo or Stephen A. Smith or Bill O'Reilly or these two quack jobs here, or the majority of people who decide they want to be better than thou, the fucking Bill Maher's. They want people to stop doing things. Stop doing what they believe is right and do what they believe is right. Stop saying free Palestine. How about you shake the hands of the people who don't say free Palestine? Shake the hands of the people that don't think Israel, the IDF, is doing wrong, so that we can get elected next year. As if the elections are the only fucking thing that matters in people's hearts these days. That's just my take. That's just my take on this. I don't think anything will happen to this. It's good. It's good. It's good for it's good for clicks. Good for views. Good to get people to listen. I listened. I was just extremely disappointed by what came out of Cuomo's mouth. Period. Period. Point blank. And then watched, sometime later down the road, they're going to try to talk about other communities that have been marginalized, that have been harmed by words. Yeah. That's unfortunate.